21. And Jehovah visited Sarah, and he had said, and Jehovah did unto Sarah as he had spoken. And Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bare to him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son. Isaac and Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God has commanded him. And Abraham was 100 years old, and his son Isaac was born unto him. And Sarah said, God hath made me to laugh. Everyone that heareth will laugh with me. And she said, Who would have said unto Abraham that Sarah should give children suck? For I have borne him a son in his old age. And the child grew and was weaned. And Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, whom she had borne unto Abraham, mocking. Wherefore she said unto Abraham, Cast out this handmaid and her son, for the son of this handmaid shall not be heron with my son, even with Isaac. And the things was very grievous in Abraham's sight on account of his son. And God said unto Abraham, Let it not be grievous in thy sight because of the lad, and because of thy handmaid, and all that Sarah saith unto thee. Hearken unto her voice, for in Isaac shall thy seed be called, and also of the son of the handmaid will I make a nation, because he is thy seed. And Abraham rose up early in the morning, and took bread and a bottle of water, and gave it unto Hagar, putting it on her shoulder, and gave her the child, and sent her away. And she departed, and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba, and the water in the bottle was spent. And she cast the child under one of the shrubs, and she went and sat her down over against him a good way off, as it were a bow shot. For she said, Let me not look upon the death of the child. And she sat over against him, and lifted up her voice, and wept. And God heard the voice of the lad. And the angel of God called to Hagar out of heaven, and said unto her, What alith thee, Hagar? Fear not, for God hath heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise, lift up the lad, and hold him in thy hand, for I will make him a great nation. And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. And she went and filled up the bottle with water, and gave the lad drink. And God was with the lad, and he grew, and he dwelt in the wilderness, and became as he grew up an archer. And he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran. And his mother took him a wife out of the land of Egypt. And it came to pass at the time that Amalek and Pichol, the captain of his host, spake unto Abraham, saying, God is with thee in all that thou donest. Now therefore swear unto me here by God that thou wilt not deal falsely with me, nor with my son, nor with my son's son, but accordingly to the kindness that I have done unto thee, thou shalt do unto me, and to the land wherein thou hast sojourned. And Abraham said, I will swear. And Abraham reproved Amalek because of the well of water, which Amalek's servants had violently taken away. And Amalek said, I know not who hath done this thing, neither didst thou tell me, neither yet heard I of it, but today. And Abraham took sheep and oxen, and gave them unto Amalek, and they too made a covenant. And Abraham set 7 Elam lambs of the flock by themselves. And Amalek said unto Abraham, What means these 7 Ewe lambs which thou hast set by themselves? And he said, These 7 Ewe lambs shalt thou take of my hand, that it may be a witness unto me that I have digged this well. Wherefore he called that place Beersheba, because they swore both of them. So they made a covenant at Beersheba. And Amalek rose up, and Pichol, the captain of his host, and they returned into the land of the Philistines. And Abraham planted a Tarmaskic tree in Beersheba, and called there on the name of Jehovah, the everlasting God. And Abraham sojourneyed in the land of the Philistines many days. Genesis 21 is the promised arrive chapter, but it's written so you feel two things at once. God is perfectly faithful, human household are still messy, and God's mercy still reaches the vulnerable. It's chapter about fulfilled promise, painful separations, and settled witness. Isaac is born. God's word is as solid as time itself. Jehovah visited Sarah as he had said at the set time. The text piled up phases as he had said, as he has spoken at the set time, to make one point unmistakable. God keeps covenant speech. The promise wasn't poetry, it was reality on a calendar. Isaac's name, he laughs, because theology, Sarah's laughter in Genesis 18 was the laughter of impossibility. Now she says, God hath made me to laugh. Everyone will laugh with me. God transforms cynicism into joy, disbelief into testimony. What God is saying, my promise can turn your impossible into worship. I do not just fulfill, I redeem the emotions of the waiting. Circumcision on the 8th day. Abraham obeys immediately. This is covenant embodiment. The child of promise is marked as belonging to God. What God is saying, fulfillment doesn't replace obedience, it deepens it. The conflict, the old workaround can't share the covenant heirship. As at Isaac's weakening fest, Sarah sees Ismael mocking or playing, depending on translation nuance. Either way, Sarah perceives a threat to Isaac's status. She demands, "Cast out. The son shall not be heron with my son." This is morally complex. Sarah's posture is not portrayed as pure, but God's word to Abraham is precise. And all that Sarah saith, hearken, for in Isaac shall thy seed be called, meaning the covenant line is Isaac. God is not rejecting Ismael as worthless. He is defining covenant inheritance. Then God immediately adds, also, the son of the handmaid would I make a nation. So God draws a distinction. Covenant redemption promised line goes through Isaac. Blessing and care still extends to Ismael. What God is saying, I can choose a covenant line without abandoning the other. Election is for mission, not permission for cruelty. Cruelty. Hagar in the wilderness. God hears the child and saves the outcast. Genesis 21, verse 14 to 21. This is the second Hagar wilderness scene, echoing Genesis 16, but it's even more desperate. Hagar runs out of water, placed the boy under a shrub, and cannot bear to watch him die. This is raw human suffering. Then the turning point. God hears the voice of the lad. Fear not, God hath heard. That's Isaac's story in parallel form. Isaac equals promised child. Ismael equals heard by God child. God opens her eyes to a well. That phase is important. The provision is not necessarily created out of thin air. It's revealed. God makes a way where despair can't see one. God was with the lad. That is covenant-like presence language, not the same covenant role, but real divine companionship. What God is saying, my covenant plan does not make me blind to the outcast. I hear the cries at the edge of the story, and I provide life. Amalek returns. The nation starts to recognize God's hand on Abraham. Genesis 21, verse 22 through 24. God is with thee in all that thou hast. No, God is with thee in all that thou donest. This is God's fulfillment of Genesis 12 in a subtle way. Abraham is becoming a public sign. Even outsiders can tell God's favors on him. Amalek asked for a sworn commitment of kindness across generations. This is the nation saying, in effect, we want a peaceful relationship with the man God is blessing. What God is saying, my blessing is meant to be visible and stabilizing, creating peace, not domination. The well dispute. Abraham becomes a peacemaker with backbone. Genesis 22, verse 25 to 32. Abraham confronts injustice. Servants violently take away the well and resolves it through covenant agreement. The 7 embryo lambs becomes a witness sign, like a legal marker. This well is mine. This matters theologically because wells in Genesis often symbolize survival in the land, God provision, settled presence rather than wandering panic. Abraham is moving from pure nomad to recognized resident, not owning the land fully yet, but living in it with legitimate standing. What God is saying, my promise don't make you passive. You can pursue justice without violence, secure what is rightfully yours, and live peaceably with neighbors. Abraham's worship, the everlasting God promised rest on God's time, not ours. Genesis 21, verse 33 to 34. God called on the name of Jehovah, the everlasting God. After set time fulfillment, after wilderness rescue, after a covenant with the local king, Abraham anchors the whole story in God's nature. God is not rushed. God is not forgetful. God is not temporary. Abraham plants a tree, a sign of settledness, and worships the everlasting ones. What God is saying, I am the God who faithfulness outlasts your waiting, your failure, your fear, and your changing circumstances. The main message of Genesis 21 in one sentence. God fulfills the impossible promise exactly as he spoke by giving Isaac transformed laughter into joy, clarifies the covenant line through Isaac's while still hearing and preserving Ishmael in the wilderness, and then begins to establish Abraham as a peaceful, credible presence among the nations, anchoring everything in worship of the everlasting God. Genesis 21.